It's not really a rivalry when one team wins every game. And that has been the recent history between LSU and South Carolina. Now, LSU's won a national championship, but Kim Mulkey has not beaten Dawn Staley at South Carolina since she's been at LSU. And that was the case again in the most recent matchup, which led to Mulkey basically just saying it outright that she believes, not basically, she did say it outright, that she believes South Carolina is the best team in the country, despite the loss to UCLA. She also went on to praise the depth that they have on display, talking about 10 McDonald's All-Americans. She was exasperated, like just basically showering praise upon the program that Dawn Staley has built and casting them to be a juggernaut, if you will. In fact, her takeaway from the game was that they could hang with the best team in the country. So it sounded like a moral victory for Kim Mulkey. Here's what Mulkey had to say after the game, when talking about South Carolina. This was one portion of it from Claire Foley TV here.
I learned we can hang with the best in the country. And I do think they're the best in the country. I know UCLA put it on them, but I do think, look, I don't know that I've ever coached against a team that's got 10 McDonald's All-Americans on a roster.
I mean, there you have it right there, right? Can't even believe it. In disbelief is the LSU coach. Here was some more of that particular bit from Chaz Frazier here.
Look, I don't know that I've ever coached against a team that's got 10 McDonald's All-Americans on a roster. How do you even keep 10 on a roster? And that's what we faced today. And what a challenge it was. And it was an enjoyable game to coach in. And man, was it good for women's basketball, but it was good for the SEC. Kudos to South Carolina. Great crowd today. They're good. Well, you got 10 McDonald's All-Americans. Flip a coin. Y'all can play any of them you want. Got to keep them happy, right? I don't have that. I've got to go with what I have, what I feel in my gut. Fatigue could play a part, but I always tend to give credit to the opponent. The shots we missed could have been fatigue. The shots we missed could have been their good defense. Yeah, you got that many. Who you gonna stop? Pick your poison.
Now, that is basically admitting that Dawn Staley has done a better job at one function of the job than she has in order to get talent to the program. That is part of being a college coach. Now, I'm not slighting Kim Mulkey, who, of course, is a winner, has the hardware to prove it, has the track record to prove it, the resume to prove it, all of those different things. But nonetheless, it does sound a little, admitting, just basically saying we ain't on the level. We ain't on the level. And that's a hell of a thing to say when you're a program like LSU, who's only a couple of years removed from winning the national championship, not to mention just one of those heritage programs with a coach like Mulkey and a bunch of talent in her own right with Williams and Morrow and Flauget. So for Mulkey to say that, she's basically going, they're a problem. That's a real problem over there. And Dawn Staley said as much too in discussing the way her team is able to play, the variety of styles her team is able to play, courtesy of Jared Parker TV.
I think we're chameleons, so to speak. We could play the type of game that's being played. I thought we were forced to play a certain way tonight, and it was just the gravity of the game. It was it was necessary for us to win this game. The implications of the SEC standings, the NCAA tournament, like all of those things matter. And we could say it's not a big game, but it's a big game. It's a big game come March when we're playing in the SEC tournament, when we're playing in the, when the NCAA committee gets together and see us winning this game.
And as I've said, South Carolina comes at you in waves. They really do it with defense and they do it with depth. Staley had said Joyce Edwards is going to be the best player in the country at some point. So she did say that after the game about an individual. But so much of the individual talk about South Carolina has boiled down to Mylasia Fulwiley, who is a brilliant talent, but hasn't exactly stood out above the rest of that team because that is a balanced team. Whether you're looking at Fagan or Pow or Kits, on and on down the line, they're getting contributions across the board. Raven Johnson's in there for defense. You just Tessa Johnson, obviously another one. You're just getting balanced attack from South Carolina almost every time out. Not these standout performances. Edwards has really started to come on, of course, but that's the way that they get you, and that is a credit to the coach to get them all to buy in that regard, right? Like Mulkey essentially alluded to that. Say pick your poison. They've got 10 all, but they are all happy. Other than that, little bit of transfer chatter around for Wiley that didn't actually come from her. There's been no inklings of complaints about how Staley steers the ship there. As far as them being the best team in the country, I mean, UCLA would have a counter to that saying we beat them. We've got Lauren Betts, who has the size to present a problem. She's a different matchup issue because of her size and skill and ability. And then just the head-to-head result. I think, you can make a case for Notre Dame, considering Notre Dame has beaten both USC, and UConn, not to mention Texas. And then their backcourt is a different sort of thing. I mean, as good as South Carolina is and they're able to put the clamps on teams, they haven't faced anything quite like what Notre Dame has in the backcourt. But they did put the clamps on the Tigers. I mean, Morrow was just 6 of 19. She's had a great season, but she got 16 rebounds, but 6 of 9. It took 19 shots to get 15 points. Flauget, 13 points on 18 shots. Williams, 13 points on 17 shots. That's the South Carolina defense. That's what they hang that big hat Don Staley was wearing in the interview the other day on. So, I mean, look, if someone's going to say South Carolina is the best team in the country, it will be proven by the end of the year. It's hard to argue vociferously against. You could make a counterpoint, but it's hard to argue strongly against. Not to mention the fact that Kim Mulkey probably has a better understanding of these things than I do. Just like she was able to admit that South Carolina is better than they are and the number one team in the country, I am able to admit I probably don't know as much about women's college basketball as Kim Mulkey, the LSU head coach, does.